Support for this episode of PBS Reno Arts is provided by the Nevada Arts Council. Arts and creativity make us stronger, fueling innovation, prosperity, and thriving communities across Nevada. They boost our economy, promote well-being, and enhance education, empowering Nevadans of all ages. The Nevada Arts Council nurtures these essential creative forces. Together, let's elevate the arts in every corner of our great state. More at nvartscouncil.org. This is PBS Reno Arts. I'm Dave Santina in the studio of PBS Reno in Reno, Nevada, and very excited today because we have a first-time author, right? You're a first-time author, yes. Madelyn Postman, who is in town for the first time probably, I'm guessing, in a while.
Well, since last October, but
okay.
I was born in Reno, but I come here about once a year these days.
Okay,
Yeah.
Gotcha. And now you're across the pond, right? You're in London?
Yes.
See, I think of that as a tougher travel to do regularly. So good for you for doing it every year.
Yeah.
You're here on a book tour.
Yes.
Yeah. So and this is your debut book.
It is. Yeah.
Very exciting. It's called Staring into the Sun. And you're here as part of a book tour. Mm-hmm. And so it's great that you get to come back to your hometown for part of the book tour. Can you tell me a little bit about the book? I'm excited to get my hands on a copy here after we talk and read through it, because I've seen little bits that are fascinating, and I'm thrilled that you're in town.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here as well. It's a real pleasure to be here.
It's our pleasure to have you.
So the book is a hybrid memoir and narrative nonfiction, aka true stories, about my Chinese American family, and it spans 1895 to 2015. So there are 5 historical narrative nonfiction chapters and 5 memoir chapters. And memoir is also considered to be nonfiction. Of course, it's the way that you remember it, but it is nonfiction.
Unless your memory is really off,
yes,
it still qualifies pretty much.
Yeah.
So I've been able to listen to some excerpts because you also have done a podcast for a while called The Spark. Mm-hmm. And you were reading some excerpts on there, which I loved that you did that. And with your permission, I would love to be able to share some here.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, well, let's take a minute here and listen to an excerpt from the book.
An Upright Man, December 1921. Henry Wu was smiling to himself, thinking about the promise of sex later that night, when he heard someone thumping on the door. They had been eating dinner. Broth, fried pork, steamed greens, rice. Mary getting dagger eyes from her mother-in-law, Lum Shi, who reproached too much salt. Better too little than too much. You can add it, you can't take it away. Henry kept quiet. For him, the meal was delicious. His allegiances were split between his new wife and his mother. Now that they were living together in one house, he just wanted to keep the peace. He jumped up to answer the door. It was Lo, red-faced. Henry had never seen his sister's husband look so desperate. Lo shouted, "Did you take it?" "Take what?" "The money, $500, Lo said in his too loud voice. Henry was confused. "What?" "No, I've been here since I left the store." It took less than 10 minutes to walk the 2 blocks home from the Oakland Toggery. What happened? Mary and Lum Shi, hearing the commotion, appeared behind him. Lo quietened slightly when he saw them. "All the cash is gone. The silver is still there. I left just after you did, but I forgot some papers there, so I went back after about an hour. The cash register was forced open and all the cash was gone. They left the silver, $75 worth. Since the drawer was forced, I was hoping it wasn't you, but I wanted to ask before reporting it to the police. I'll go to the station now." Lo looked at Henry, then at Mary and Lum Shi, then back to Henry. The women followed Lo's gaze, and their eyes landed on Henry expectantly. He had nothing to say. Lo seemed to be thinking something, but restraining himself from saying it in front of Mary and Lum Shi. "We'll talk about it tomorrow," he concluded. The next morning, Lo, his steely composure restored, led Henry down to the Toggery basement and pointed at the door. "I told you to double-check all the doors. Did you?" This one was left unlocked. The police think it was an inside job. Henry swallowed hard. The myriad store opening and closing tasks were not yet routine for him. He prodded his memory of yesterday evening and found nothing about the basement door, only the novelty of Mary awaiting him, her latest attempt at adopting his mother's dishes, and how good it would feel when they went to bed together that night. He admitted, "I must have left it unlocked." His mind kept churning. If it really was an inside job, there were about 24 suspects between stock boys, clerks, window trimmers. Not all working yesterday, but they all knew where the money was kept, and someone may have seen Lo leaving. Lo said, "If we don't find the thief, and I don't want to start accusing innocent people, then you'll have to pay the missing money back. As the manager, making sure the doors are locked is your responsibility, so you need to answer to the consequences." $500. 2 months' wages. Henry knew there was no arguing with Lo, particularly for anything regarding the toggery, which his brother-in-law had founded and owned 100%. Lo pinned everyone to their rungs of hierarchy and would not negotiate with anyone who clung on below him, even family. Especially when it must have been Henry's fault. It was the right thing to do. And as the reality of the situation sunk in, he felt the burden of time stretching ahead of him. He would have to work off the debt over many months. He couldn't go home with nothing at all in his pocket. "Fine," Henry said, resigned. "But could I ask you one thing?" "What?" Lo was guarded. "Could we keep this to ourselves, that I need to pay for the stolen money? I don't want the rest of the family to know about it," Henry pleaded. "No secrets." "But it's not a secret. It would be a gentleman's agreement." Lo shook his head. "No. You need to pay for your mistake." Henry looked Lo in the eye and nodded slowly. His mother might hit him, like when he was younger. Even now, he still kowtowed to her every day when he arrived home, kneeling and bowing deep until his forehead touched the ground. He had no idea how Mary would react. Though they had graduated from courtship into marriage, he still found her hard to read. She was quiet and seemed unthreatening, but Henry suspected that she had a sharp side, hopefully not as honed as his mother's. There were 3 Chinese men for every Chinese woman in Oakland, and he considered himself fortunate to be Mary's chosen one. Would she regret her decision? From now on, he promised himself, there will be no more domestic distractions. The toggery will come first.
That's an excerpt from An Upright Man, one of the chapters in the book Staring into the Sun. The stories that are historical, or I guess what you call them, historical fiction, not historical fiction, narrative nonfiction.
Yes.
That's the term.
Yes.
Narrative nonfiction. I imagine that there are many to choose from. How did you decide what to include in this book?
First I want to talk a little bit about narrative nonfiction and creative nonfiction, because a lot of people don't really know those terms.
Well, right. The term creative nonfiction almost sounds like an oxymoron, right?
Yes, yes, exactly. So they're sort of they're the same. Narrative or creative nonfiction are considered the same thing. I suppose the quintessential one is In Cold Blood by Truman Capote.
Right.
So it's a nonfiction story that reads like fiction. So you have, as I explained in the author's note, it's as many facts as possible. So the facts were like my stepping stones. And then the creative part is the kind of jump between one stone and the next, where you fill in the gaps with anything plausible, as close to the truth as you can get it. So I would chase down every single fact that I could, and then where there wasn't something, or when I was trying to create dialogue, then that's the creative or the narrative part. So that's sort of to explain what the term is.
Yeah, that's good to know, because as you're reading it, you've got conversations between people who obviously you couldn't have been there for.
Yeah, they weren't recorded on my iPhone.
Right, in 1895, or back in the day. So how do you decide how to, or what drives that dialogue for you as a writer? These are people who are in your family,
Mm-hmm.
who you know about, but you're having to create their dialogue to get them through to a place that you're going, right?
Right. Yeah, so again, it's sort of like mapping the facts and not just putting all the facts out there like a boring history book,
right?
But creating a story. So I created looked into the characters and then created a plot and then brought in the dialogue. I mean, it sounds kind of very linear, but it wasn't like that. So the dialogue sort of, fleshes out the scene and makes it real. And in going back to your other question about this, like how did I choose the stories?
Mm-hmm.
So I actually began this book in 2017. I began to research it and to write it. And it was about both sides of my family. So I started researching 16 people. It was called 16 Stories originally. Okay. So the 16 people were my brother and myself, our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents. And then over the years, I got to basically 2023 and I'd written the whole thing. And then, but there was a lot of sort of information in there, facts, and it didn't flow necessarily that well. And the 16 chapters didn't really stick together that well. So I went through some processes. So I had the manuscript assessed and then rewrote some of it, looked for literary agents, didn't get much interest. And then I took a short story course in the fall of 2023. And between the course and then one meeting with a book coach, she said, have you thought about making this into a short story collection? So even though it was called 16 Stories and I was just doing a short story course, I hadn't really thought of it as a short story collection. Mm-hmm. So then in 2024, I went back and started rewriting every single chapter and made them stronger as standalone short stories. And I was sort of learning the craft of writing a bit more during that time through courses and listening to podcasts. And then I edited and just went sort of edited one chapter to the next in the order that it felt natural. And I got to what's now the last chapter of Staring into the Sun. And I was like, this works. And that happened to be the maternal side of the family, which is the Chinese American side, whereas my paternal side is Eastern European Jewish. So Poland, Lithuania, Latvia. And I just didn't quite get to them in the edit. And then I thought, I have this book that works. And with the 16 stories and with Staring into the Sun, it was really important to me to give equal weight to each person, whether it was one of my ancestors who we could talk about more is like famous millionaire philanthropist. He's got tons of newspaper coverage. Other people, they don't probably never appear in a newspaper except for maybe a wedding announcement or something like that. So, and I wanted to give them equal weight. So that was the choice of the stories came about that way.
Interesting. Okay. So because some of the excerpts I was able to hear were from a few different chapters, and yes. One was way back mm-hmm. with a theft in a shop.
Yes.
And it's not for me to explain it, I guess, but you wrote all the characters in that. I'll call them characters, but
yeah,
real
I call them characters
members, right?
too. Yeah.
So as you're writing them, do you feel like you're getting to know them better in a way, even though you're having to come up with all of the dialogue yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I really got immersed in each character, and I do call them characters. So I would have a sort of profile of each character. What is their personality like? All of their date, when were they born? Where were they born? All of that sort of, all the factual information.
Sure.
And I would really do a sort of a character study. I bounce back and forth between two craft books. So one is called Story Genius by Lisa Crone. And it talks about the character and a sort of, she calls it the third rail. And it's this kind of emotional need that propels your character, and that propels them through the plot in a way, so the plot points serve that need in your character.
Okay.
And then there's another book called Save the Cat Writes a Novel by Jessica Brody, and that's a lot about plotting, which I actually didn't use as much because it works more on a whole like novel. It's got, I think, 15 or 16 beats in the novel, and there just isn't room for that in a short story. So
right.
in a short story, it's sometimes like down to 4 beats in a way.
Sure.
And so in terms of the character, I would think about them. Then I would have a sort of motif. So the chapter you're talking about was about my great grandfather Henry Wu, and there's the theft, and it sort of goes through his whole life from when he's in his 20s to maybe his 60s or so, and the theme in that is actually sort of him being a bit of a puppet, and there are some scenes and and also toys and things like that. So it's called an upright man, that chapter.
Right.
So I'd have sort of scene cards and make sure that this motif comes through without being too heavy-handed as well. And then every chapter was like that. I'd sort of really look at it as a whole and try to make it unique and get immersed in the character of each person.
I'll compliment you on the bits I've been able to hear you read in excerpts. I felt like I knew him a little bit, even at a very small sample size. Just the way you described him reacting to being questioned about a theft. So there's a relative has a shop. He worked in it. He was responsible for locking up, and he's not sure whether he perhaps left the door unlocked, and that could have led to the theft. But he accepts almost immediately that it might be his fault, and so he sort of swallows hard and takes it.
Yes, he takes responsibility for it.
And I thought, I feel like I know this person, and what kind of person he is. Like, he's just a stand-up man, right? Isn't that the sort of one of the definitions? So, if for someone who's talking about learning from all these other writers, I think you learned well, because what I read felt like a three-dimensional person with depth. So, and that was really, I thought, really impressive. And because this is your first this is your first book. This is not your first writing.
It pretty much is.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've really loved writing my whole life, and I went back to some of my school papers from high school, and I found some stories that are very similar to what I write now, just in terms of the subject matter, about family, about my brother and my grandmother. And so I've obviously been sort of fascinated by this for a long time.
So you're ready to talk about them in your writing. And so it comes out, because, I mean, for a first book, it's, you're entered into award competitions, and you're a semifinalist in one that's, I think it's labeled on the book itself. For a first book, I don't think that many people get that, do that well that quickly.
Oh, thank you.
So I hope
it was only 10 years in the making.
Only 10 years, right? So but an overnight success, only a decade in the making.
Yeah.
So what started you down the path to writing this? Because it's not like you're not busy enough, right? You run a couple of companies.
Yes. Yeah.
So this seems like an awful lot to take on in your, we'll say, spare time.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's definitely a labor of love. I do have a full-time job otherwise, but I think it's I've been really propelled writing it. So I began to write it because I just love writing. Like, there's this joy of being in the flow of writing. I wanted to learn more about my family history. I wanted to just learn more about history generally and be sort of forced into that. And I also wanted to write about the death of my mother when I was young. So I thought, putting this all together, and I had an Indiegogo campaign, a crowdfunding campaign in the first year that I started. And it was really more for accountability than for the money.
Okay.
And so since then, I kind of told as many people as possible about it to hold me accountable. I thought at the time it would take a year. And it was quite funny with the Indiegogo because I've listed all the people in the back of the book who contributed, gotten back in touch and said, here's your free copy, your prepaid copy from 10 years ago. And I wrote to this one, I wrote emails to people. And then a friend wrote back and he changed the subject line and he said, so it's not a scam after all. So yeah, the real book is here.
That's right. Not a scam, sir.
Yes.
That's great. So was writing this in any way therapeutic for you?
Yeah, I would say it was very therapeutic and very cathartic. Somebody asked at what the first launch event, was it healing? And I think it was, it kind of feels like something that I pushed underneath that is a bit more on the surface. So it's been allowed to vent a bit, but it's still there. It's not like it vented and it's all gone. And
sure.
Maybe I'm trying to think of what metaphor I'm using. If I'm using a volcano metaphor, it hasn't gone all cold.
There's more magma beneath still.
Yeah, it's still there, but it's like it's been allowed to release a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
The act of making public something that's so personal is a lot of people, I think, have described it as brave writing, and I don't know that you would call yourself brave, because I think most people who dabble in that kind of writing don't think of themselves that way. It's just what you want to write. But but was it difficult at the times you were writing specifically about that most difficult subject?
Yeah, I mean, I still can't really I don't really talk about it very much.
Yeah.
And so I tell people just read the book, and we'll
okay.
I still do find it hard to talk about, and definitely the most difficult thing to get through, like the editing. And there was actually one point when I was doing that rewrite that I got to that chapter about my mother, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to do this book anymore. I'm going to do something different, use the same characters, but put time travel in there and make it fiction. And then after a while, I was like, wait a minute, I just need to sit with this, let myself go through it and realize that it's difficult and sort of, get past it as well, but sort of acknowledge that. And that happens during the audiobook recording, during, every point of it. So.
Okay. So every step along the way it changes, maybe makes it a little easier. Not really.
I think no. Yeah, no, I think not really easier, but it's in terms of getting it out there. I'm glad that it's out there because I think it's important in terms of mental health and it's I think it's important to get it out there. But again, I find it very hard to actually speak about it. I can write about it.
I understand. I'm dancing around it myself because I don't want to be too flip. But I guess we probably should say that your mom died by suicide.
Yes, yeah.
And you were very young.
Yes, yeah, I was just 4, yeah.
Okay, so do you even have memories?
Yeah, I have, it's like snapshot memories in a way. And it was during the process, I actually wrote down every single memory I have of her. Oh, nice. So yeah. Okay, let's move on. Sorry.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. We'll move on. So I'm curious, you're in London now, but what was your history here?
So I was born in Reno, and then we moved to San Francisco when I was 9. Okay. And then, so my dad he's now retired, but is an allergist in Reno. Okay. So he still kept the practice here, and our stepmother and my brother and I were in San Francisco, and then my dad would go back and forth, on the weekends, basically.
I see.
So we were there. So when I was in 5th grade, that's when we moved. So I was in San Francisco for 4 years, and then went away to prep school on the East Coast for high school. Then went to Brown, and then from Brown I went to Italy. And I tell people that I'm still on my junior year abroad since 92 until now, and then I ended up in England eventually in 2000.
I can see the draw. Yeah, absolutely. And you're incredibly busy in London. You've got two different companies essentially. Do you want to mention them?
Sure. Yeah. So My day job is a sustainability consultant. The business is called Grain Sustainability, and we merged with another business called Menzies, which is an accountancy, auditing, and strategic advisory firm, only UK based. So we merged with Menzies last fall. So Grain and Menzies are essentially the same business now, or Grain is part of Menzies.
Gotcha.
So that's my 4-day-a-week job.
Okay.
And then I'm also, as part of the sustainability aspect, we're business members of 1% for the Planet. So we give 1% of our turnover to environmental nonprofits. So both the Menzies ESG, Environment, Social and Governance service line is a member, as well as my writing income, the company that goes through, is also a member. So 1% of my writing income also goes to environmental nonprofits.
Nice. And this has been a passion for a while, right?
Yes, yeah. So I'm on the board of 1% for the Planet. So that's another sort of thing I do in my free time.
In your copious free time.
Exactly.
My goodness.
Yeah.
So I loved what I read a little note in one of the websites about your history, about how your passion for sustainability began with a comment from a friend just walking out of on campus, and you tossed a piece of trash in a bin.
Yeah.
And what did he say?
He said, "Out of sight, out of mind," and in a very sarcastic way that teenagers have.
Yeah.
And I just was like, oh my gosh, it doesn't just like vaporize when you put it in the trash can. And I think that really stuck with me. And I have a unhealthy interest in waste and recycling and things. I went to this incineration plant in England and just found it so fascinating. And I really want to go to a recycling like sorting plant and see how that all works too.
Right. So does this business, the sustainability, grain sustainability, are you consulting businesses about how to operate in the most sustainable way?
Exactly. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So we do things like carbon footprinting, and then something called a materiality assessment, which is identifying and prioritizing the key environmental, social, and governance issues for the business or organization, and full strategies. We do training, help them implement the strategies, communications, and it's different every day. It's just really fascinating.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, it's at least for 4 days a week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's funny with the writing because I'm always in the present or always living in the future a bit. Like, what am I going to do in 5 minutes tomorrow, whatever. And the writing was very different. It was a bit of a refuge because I was looking mostly into the past. I did weave in the sustainability a little bit, just in terms of there's the chapter about Henry, an upright man. He bought a new car every couple of years, and it was. I can't remember the exact words, but it was sort of like it's progress and him going ahead, and like just the way that he was always sort of moving forward, and the sort of the car had something to do with that as well. And I did write about a paternal grandfather in that way because he was in LA. And I think there was a little bit around smog or something that I sort of, fit in there. Yeah, I was like,
just to remind everybody.
Exactly.
Breathing brown cloud.
Yes.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of your 1 day a week job, you're on a tour right now.
Yes.
What's that like, being on a book tour for your very first book?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, to get the first copy in my hands in February, that was just, there are all these moments where it's something, it's been almost 10 years in the making. But of course, even when I was little, I thought I should write about my life because I already knew that particularly the Chinese American side was just so fascinating. It's like a millionaire, a magician, a model. Yeah. It's like, how can you resist that? Writing about that.
It's fascinating. And so here it is. You're touring town to town.
Yeah.
Did you select any of the locations for any personal reason? I'm assuming Reno for one.
Yes, yeah. So Reno to come back here. So the book is dedicated to my family of origin, who were all at the event yesterday at the Brewery Arts Center. They're going to be at the Radical Cat tonight. And my family of creation, my husband and 2 kids, who were at the first event near where I live. or actually in the town where I live. So yeah, that's just amazing. And then the two events this weekend, May 30th and May 31st. So one is at the Shung Family Chinese Cultural Center. And Shung is the name of our great-grandfather, Zhou Shung. And I write extensively about that location. So that's going to be just kind of mind-blowing to be reading about the location in the location. And the crazy thing about that is that in doing the research, I found that my great-grandmother, who's not like the wife of Zhou Shung, but on the other side of the family, so she wasn't, related to him, she actually lived on the site of where that Chinese Cultural Center is today.
Oh, wow. That's wild.
And I every time I look at that, I look at the census, like 9th and Harrison in Oakland. I look at it's unbelievable.
Incredible coincidence.
Yes.
That's unreal. And so I should mention that we're recording this on May 28th. By the time you hear it, these events have come and gone, but you can still read about everything we're talking about by getting a copy of the book. Oh,
yes.
And by the way, you have a recommendation that I wanted to make sure you get to talk about. How best to buy this book?
Oh, yes. So if you go to my website, it's madelynpostman.com. So spelled MadelynPostman.com. There are buying links there. It gives you the best buying link, which is essentially directly from my publisher, 1016 Press. And then, so there's a paperback, there's an ebook, and then there's an audiobook, which is narrated by a good friend, Kate Hammer, who's an actor. So she narrated the 5 third person, and there's 1 second person chapters. I narrated the 4 memoir chapters. My brother, Madelyn Postman, narrated the excerpts from newspapers and other documents.
Gotcha.
And Anthony produced it as well. So his business is called Mercury Calling. And he also produces my podcast.
Nice. Yeah. So, and I've heard him get nice shout outs. And by the way, Anthony is here just off camera. And I think we've already talked about me bringing him in for a separate podcast, because I think we need to talk about the work that he does, which is an art in itself. So stand by for that. Thank you for that. And then you did mention at one point also a website called bookshop.org, correct?
Yes, yeah.
And as online vendors go, that's the one you recommend.
Yes, yeah. So for example, if you buy the ebook, you could get it from bookshop.org. You can get the paperback from there as well. So bookshop.org benefits local bookstores. So if you can choose a bookstore you want to give your, I don't know what percentage it is, but that you can give part of the sales to. And I think if you don't choose a bookstore, I don't know what happens, but they will still benefit local bookstores.
Maybe they find out your zip code or something and find the
match
closest book.
Yes.
Who knows? Maybe. But I like the idea of supporting local bookstores. And in fact, I know in your podcast, you would mention you buy from them, and rather than the one of the larger vendors, like the one that starts with the letter A.
Yeah.
No names.
Exactly.
No names.
Yes.
We don't need to be harassed. But I just thought that was charming, and also I love local bookstores, so I would totally love to support that. So if you're gonna if you don't go to the website madelynpostman.com,
yes,
or if you want to go to bookshop.org, you're supporting local bookstores, and I think that's a great idea.
Definitely.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So any more in the works here? You working on another book? What are you doing?
Yeah.
What's next?
Well, I have the whole half of my family I didn't cover. So I've already started. I'm about a quarter of the way into a novel, so it's going to be fiction.
Okay.
It's a control freak PR consultant who based in London. And she loses control of her identity because her assistant sets up an AI avatar, a sort of data double, to run her social media accounts, and it creates havoc. And at the same time, her father is dying, so she goes back home and starts to research her family history, which is Eastern European Jewish. Huh. So I'll bring in the sort of, again, like the characters, some of that history, but I will fictionalize it because with Staring into the Sun, I wrote about 20 or more pages of notes and references, and it just took a long time, and I don't want to have to do that again. So,
fair enough.
Yeah, so that's the next one.
Do you have a timeline in mind for that one?
Yeah, 1 year.
Right.
I'd like to start writing again around July, I think, and then I don't want to put a timeline to it, but it's called "I Am Gone" is the working title. So yeah.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
once you have a better idea of when this will be available to people, then we can maybe revisit. Maybe you'll do another book tour.
Yeah, I'll be back
maybe
here.
You can come back and we can talk about that book.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the time today. I really appreciate it, and continued success on your on all of your endeavors. You've got so much going on. I can't even list them all.
Thank you.
But yeah, so I'm so glad you were able to make time to come in and sit down for a minute, because I was excited. I should mention the reason that we first connected was that Christina Lee, who did the podcast Refugee's Daughter at PBS Reno, you reached out to her because that podcast is absolutely the perfect place for you to tell your story, to talk with her. But the podcast is not in production right now, so I'm you have to do with me for the time being. But all thanks to Christina Lee for connecting us, because we love Refugee's Daughter. And if you haven't listened to Refugee's Daughter, I demand that you turn this off right now and go and listen to that, because that's a great podcast. It's fascinating. You will learn things. If you're like me, you will learn things you had no idea about, and it will make you, it'll broaden your mind and deepen your understanding of, just how interesting all our lives are, and how much we all have to provide and share with each other. So please go listen to Refugee's Daughter. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to remind everybody, if you're watching this on the PBS Reno television broadcast and you'd like to check out more like this, you can actually listen on the website, pbsreno.org. Now, I want to also remind everybody to watch Artifacts on PBS Reno via broadcast, or pbsreno.org, or the YouTube channel, or the PBS app, lots of ways. Also read Art Views, all of our columnists, at pbsreno.org. Now, if you have a question or a comment or a suggestion, please send them to me at podcast@pbsreno.org. My thanks again to Madelyn Postman, and thank you for listening to PBS Reno Arts.
Support for this episode of PBS Reno Arts is provided by the Nevada Arts Council. Arts and creativity make us stronger, fueling innovation, prosperity, and thriving communities across Nevada. They boost our economy, promote well-being, and enhance education, empowering Nevadans of all ages. The Nevada Arts Council nurtures these essential creative forces. Together, let's elevate the arts in every corner of our great state. More at nvartscouncil.org.